I have my course in Brazil I have 6,000 students in a course. It's called The End of America and the World as We Know It. The hypothesis of the course is that America as we knew it is gone, and something different is coming. We don't know what. And because of that, because America is gone, the world as we know it is gone. And I started this course in 2021, immediately after Trump lost. And a lot of the predictions that I made towards the course happened. And we're now coming to the end of it. I would love to hear what you think is going to happen to America.
So let me give almost a sort of summary of the thesis of my film, but in a whimsical way, in a way that's sort of meaningful for me, because I think you'll find it interesting for your course. This may be an analogy you want to introduce, because it also it explains America, but it also explains the peculiar role of Trump in this situation. So before I came to the United States, I didn't know anything about America. In fact, I don't believe I'd ever met a white person. My exposure to America was mainly through films, war films, but also Westerns. And so I become a little bit of a connoisseur of the Western. And I realized after watching a bunch of these, and they're so interesting, and a lot of them are so good, but they kind of all have the same plot. So the plot goes like this. There's a town. It's like, let's call it Shinbone, or it's like Pleasantville. It's a nice place. Everything is going okay. And you got an old sheriff. I'm going to call that the Republican or the GOP establishment. That's sort of like a Mitt Romney type. Old guy with a mustache. He's got an old rifle, and but he's not really needed a lot because there's a saloon, there's a provision store, everything is all right. But then some bandits take over the town, and these people are utterly ruthless gangsters. The sheriff is no match for them. They beat him up, they subdue him, they take over the store, they take over the saloon. So this is what I mean. Shinbone is no longer Shinbone. America is no longer America. The world is no longer the world. And the key thing that it's difficult for people to digest is when the world changes, they always want the world to be like it was before, and they want to keep acting in the same way in the pretense like it is the same, but it's not the same. And we kind of all know it. And so you have a lot of people here in America now living under the delusion. These are all the sort of the never Trump. They're like, well, Trump is just such a disruptive force. Let's just go back to Shinbone the way it used to be. No, you can't. The gangsters have already taken over. It's gone, right? But then, and this is when the Western takes off, an outsider comes over the mountain. And nobody knows anything about him. This is Trump.
Opa, desculpe interromper o seu vídeo, mas desde 2022 eu continuo com as contas bloqueadas e o passaporte cancelado pelo Xandão. Se você aprecia o meu trabalho e tudo que eu faço pela liberdade de expressão, tem um lugar onde você pode se tornar meu apoiador com uma pequena quantia por mês. Acesse www.paulofigueiredoshow.com e torne-se meu apoiador, e aí você vai receber conteúdos exclusivos e desconto nos meus cursos. Ou então, você pode se tornar meu patrono Gold e passar a me pautar, tem reuniões comigo, você entra pro meu grupo de WhatsApp, que eu uso sempre. O link para tudo isso está aí na descrição.
And the outsider is a dubious character. He might have murdered some guy in the past, and he's thought to be a little shady. He seems to resemble the gangsters in some way, but the most significant thing is the gangsters all know that he is the guy they have to deal with. He's the threat. They have to get rid of him one way or another. They might try to buy him off. They might try to punch him. They may try to kill him, but they got to get rid of him. They know that. And then you have, of course, the great showdown, the great fight. And this is where we are in America, because the showdown hasn't happened. We don't know the end of the story. But in the Western, the end of the story is always the same. And that is that the lone gunman is successful. He defeats the gangsters. And then in a very interesting move, he gets on his horse and he leaves, which is a very surprising thing to do, because you think, first of all, why doesn't he stay? He's generally in the town. They all like him now. He's defeated the gangsters. But the point is this, and that is that if he stayed, he could become the new gangster, because he's just shown that he's the most powerful guy. He can defeat the gangsters. So he has to show that he's doing it for the people of the town. In other words, he's making Shinbone great again, and then he's going away because he's giving the town back to the people. And so he exits the scene. And of course, we're not there yet. Trump hasn't exited the scene. I by the way, in my conversation with Trump, I raise all this with him. I engage him in it because I think to some degree we're living in that kind of Western. It helps you understand why Trump and only Trump is the target, because from the gangster's point of view, he's the one guy who could spoil their picnic. So Trump is a threat to them. And I think he will be an even bigger threat the second time because he's wiser than he was the first time. The first time he was a genuine outsider. I think he trusted the FBI, he trusted the military, he trusted the health authorities. I think he now knows there's a lot of corruption and rot, even in places that you didn't know before that you needed to look. But now you need to look and you need to have major cleanup. And I think he's getting ready to do it.
How different do you think Donald Trump second term would be from the first?
Well, I don't know, but I think this is what I would sort of advocate or recommend. And that would be that what Trump does is he realizes that he needs to bring in people. And I would say people of the Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy stripe, people who are obsessed with the particularities of policy and government, and people who know and like bureaucratic infighting. Because you have to go into a place like the FBI and you have to know surgically, how do I clean this place up? Because it's not just like I replace the guy in the top and it's done. They have created a structure of incentives. So the ordinary agent has been somewhat corrupted because the ordinary agent is told something like this. Listen, if you go arrest sex traffickers, we don't really care. But if you go arrest another January 6th guy, you get a bonus. You get a promotion. So they've created a structure of incentives and disincentives that has polluted or misdirected these agencies. And somebody needs to restructure those incentives quite apart from replacing the guy at the top. You need people to do that. And I'm hopeful that Trump, if he gets in, will bring in those people, and because that is going to be an essential part of the kind of the cleanup on aisle 5.
So it's an optimistic view for America, I guess.
More, I would say, hopeful than optimistic, because the optimist tends to think things are going to come out all right. The pessimist says no. I am, in that sense, neither optimistic nor pessimistic, because I don't know if things are going to come out right. I'm not predicting that they are or they aren't, but I'm hopeful in the sense that I think there is a path that can be taken. Now, whether that path will be taken remains to be seen.